Let me give you some insight into how these events occur in the real world in communities in New Jersey and in many, many states throughout the country. There is what we call concurrent jurisdiction over child abuse. And by that, I mean, there are two institutions, whether you're in Spokane, Washington, or Miami, Florida, or Kansas City, Kansas, or Paterson, New Jersey. Wherever you are in this great nation, there is a child protection system, and there is a law enforcement system. And of course, there are other systems that deal with children and child abuse, but from the investigative perspective, to find out what happened immediately, you got DCP&P in New Jersey, or child protection, what we used to call DIFUS, and you have law enforcement, which could be the municipal police in Kenilworth, New Jersey, or Cherry Hill, New Jersey, or it could be the county prosecutor's office. Instead of the Cherry Hill PD, it would be the Camden County prosecutor in New Jersey. Doesn't matter. The Paterson police or the Camden police or the Elizabeth police, or the Franklin Lakes police, they might do an investigative interview, or the Bergen County prosecutor or the Passaic County prosecutor. One of them will do it because they are law enforcement. And depending upon the case and the culture of the community where the case arises, it might be the cops, or it might be the prosecutor, or it might be both. Ideally, it should be a team. A team should do these kind of cases. So again, what do I mean by concurrent jurisdiction? I'm holding both of my hands up. On the one hand, child protection has to go investigate. DIFUS, DCP&P, because they need to know what happened. Was little girl molested or neglected or given the wrong medicine or beaten or whatever by her caregivers? And if so, does the government step into that family to protect that child, to protect the siblings, right? And to educate the caregiver not to do it again and reform them in a way to make that household healthy and safe. Law enforcement's looking at it a little differently, but the beginning is virtually the same. What happened? DIFUS needs to know what happened. You can't go in people's homes and take away children if necessary. You can't order people to go to drug counseling. You can't teach people how to manage their cultural differences with those coining and cupping and the things we talked about the cultural issues surrounding abuse and neglect. You can't educate parents. You can't force them to go to therapy. You can't force them to do anything unless you establish jurisdiction over them. And the way that DIFUS establishes jurisdiction is they have a lawyer, a deputy attorney general, who files a complaint if necessary to convince a court in the family division that there was abuse or neglect. So the beginning of any child protection case, any DIFUS case, is what it is. What is it? Did it really happen? So you have what we call intake workers in DIFUS in New Jersey. And what are they? They're like the DIFUS cops. Now, don't confuse a DIFUS worker with a cop. They're not. They're social workers. Remember, their end goal is to help, not to punish, to help families, to keep kids safe. Law enforcement's job is to hold people accountable for their behavior and to punish them if necessary. Law enforcement is mostly punitive, okay? DIFUS and child protection is mostly remedial, okay? Repairing, fixing, helping. But here's the thing I want you to take away. Both DIFUS and law enforcement have to know what happened before they can tell people what to do, before they can hold people responsible or accountable. So you have to go out and investigate what the heck happened. So if little Daniela says, Grandpapa comes in my room and he does it late at night and he's scary and he touches me on my body, well, the division needs to know what the heck happened. DIFUS needs to ask questions and send an intake worker out to find out what the truth is, whether this was abusive, whether it was innocent, what's the kid talking about, right? So does law enforcement. So at the very beginning of the case, DIFUS and law enforcement are basically on the same page, and that is they go out and investigate allegations of abuse or neglect. So it would make sense, wouldn't it, class, that they would work together? It would be a little wacky if law enforcement goes, you go investigate the case, interview the kid, interview the mother, take the kid for a medical exam. And when you're done, give us a call and then we'll interview the mother, interview the kids, take the kid for another medical exam. We'll do all the stuff you did. Now, they're not that crazy, although at times back in the 60s and 70s, it kind of worked that way. But even today, there is overlap. And ideally, the division and law enforcement in each of the 21 counties in New Jersey go out collaboratively. They do a team investigation. So there's no duplication. You know, more importantly, you don't want to interview a child twice if you can avoid it, right? I mean, you don't want to interview anybody twice if you can avoid it, but especially a child who's traumatized. And the more you ask questions, the more they get, you know, interview fatigue. And more importantly, they may just want to drop out. They may not want to participate. I mean, it's difficult to relive trauma. You know, it's difficult to think about bad things that happened in the past. So, you know, we want to minimize that. So, you know, we talk more about this in Children and Justice. Suffice it to say, though, there's concurrent jurisdiction. The division's got to go find out what the heck happened. So does the prosecutor. So they go out together, but not always. And one thing that's imperative, and if there's one thing I could teach, if all of you wanted to be a cop or an investigator or a detective who investigates crimes on children, or a social worker who works for child protection, and I don't care if you're in the Great Northwest in Washington State near the Canadian border, or you're down in the Florida Keys, or you're in San Diego, or the very furthest reaches of Maine, which are kind of the four corners of this great continental United States. I don't care where you are. The one simple thing I could do, and then mic drop, is tell you to go out immediately. Don't wait 5 minutes. Don't wait 10 minutes. When little Danielle tells her guidance counselor that grandpa comes in my room and he touches me on my body and he makes me kiss him, you don't wait 10 minutes. You don't wait 10 seconds. You go out now.